Good morning. We've been discussing the beatitudes in Jesus' Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5. Now, if we bear in mind that these teachings of Jesus were revolutionary, he wants us to be gentle, to be merciful, peaceable, to be pure in heart, and to love righteousness. Now, these things go against human nature. So, if we're trying to do what Jesus said, it's the hardest thing we will ever attempt to do. Has anybody ever done it? Well, we have some examples in the Bible, yes. I'm going to look today at verse 9, where Jesus said, "Happy are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God." And we'll look at the story of Abigail. And it's in 1 Samuel 25, and it's worth reading. Lovely story. Now, at the time, David, who was to be king, was hiding away from Saul in the mountains. And I don't know if you can see the map here, but he was about here. I don't know if you can see that at all. He's west of the Dead Sea and just south of Hebron. Now, he was near the territory of this man called Nabal, who was very rich. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. Now, one commentator on this passage says that we have to remember that we are not absolute lords of what we own. It's lent to us by God to be administered in the best way possible. But Nabal was viewed as, and in various translations, he's called harsh, evil, oppressive, mean, covetous, and returning evil for good. So not a very nice person. But he had a wife named Abigail, and she is described as a woman of intelligence and beauty. And it's the intelligence that we want here, although the beauty does come into it. Now, it was getting to the point where Nabal was having his sheep shearers in, and traditionally he would throw a feast for the shearers and his servants. And so David sent messengers to Nabal to say, "Look, please, would you give us some food?" David had been looking after the flocks and helping these shepherds, and consequently Nabal's flocks had increased. Nabal, however, says to these messengers, and he says, "Who is David? There are many servants nowadays who run away from their masters. Am I to take bread and wine from the meals that I have slaughtered for my shearers and give it to men who have come from I don't know where?" So this nasty man didn't appreciate what David had done for him. On hearing this, David gets really angry, and this is not good because he's about to sin very badly. Now, it seems that Abigail had quite an important role in the management of Nabal's riches, and it's possible that she had played a role as peacemaker in other actions of Nabal's, because one of the servants didn't hesitate to go to Abigail and tell her what had happened, and that David was on the warpath and he was going to kill both Nabal and everybody in the household, every male, every servant. Abigail hastily, without the knowledge of her husband, she gets together 200 loaves, there's big loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, which doesn't sound much, but those skins were huge, holding gallons, 5 sheep ready prepared, which would have fed hundreds, 5 measures of roasted grain, it's a lot, 100 bunches of raisins, 200 cakes of figs, and she loaded all this on several donkeys, said to the servant, "You go ahead and I'll follow." She was very courageous because David was really angry. There was no idea what he was going to do. So they met up with David, and immediately she bows to the ground and she apologizes. She says, "I'm so sorry because I didn't hear the men that you sent to my husband. I wasn't there at the time, so I didn't know that you were asking for help." But she said, now here she says, look, I've brought all this for you. And then she says something interesting. She said, now, as Yahweh lives and as your soul lives, by Yahweh who has kept you from the crime of bloodshed and from taking vengeance with your own hand. Now, David was about to kill innocent blood, and it would have been a serious sin, and he was taking vengeance for himself. And throughout the Bible now, we realize that we don't take vengeance for ourselves. Now, it seems that if we can be peaceable, if we can give in, if we can try to calm someone's anger down, then do so. But it's not peace at any cost. Abigail did not make peace with her husband on this instance, because if she had done, all her household would have been killed. She knew which way to go. So when something serious, really serious, turns up, we don't take vengeance, we'll take it to the police or maybe a solicitor. And these ones have been given authority by God to take vengeance for us. So what happened? Well, Abigail knew the prophecies that David was to be king, and she says something really lovely, and we can take comfort from this. She said that Yahweh has promised to make David king, and when he has made you prince, he said, where is it now? He's going to, that David's life would be kept close in the satchel of life with Yahweh your God. So God kindly prevented David from sinning, so may God do the same for us as well. Help us not to be angry, to try a mild, peaceable way first. Now, because Abigail was so beautiful and intelligent, David asked her to be his wife. Now, that was a mixed blessing, but it's another story, and you can read it in the following pages. But if we are peaceable as best we can be, we will have God's blessing, and we will be able to call ourselves sons and daughters of God. And what better thing could we wish for? Hard enough to do, but well worth it. And thank you for listening this morning.